If I was a god and I was perfect and I created human life form, the last thing I would want to sit around on my throne watching from the clouds is a whole bunch of human suffering. Millions of people suffering would cause me great distress. So I wonder if God is flawed or he enjoys watching suffering. Because why would you create something if you didn't enjoy observing it? It would either distress him to no end to see the volume and content of suffering, or it would please him or her. I would not want to purposely create suffering for anyone except maybe enemies, people who have disrespected or hurt me. I don't mind watching that kind of suffering. I do get pleasure from seeing people who've hurt me get hurt, lose, fail. On some level, I get some pleasure from that. With that in mind, have we upset God in some way as a life form where his retaliation back is to induce inordinate and regular suffering? Now, humans do induce suffering intentionally when they play a game against someone. They want to win, they want the other to lose, therefore to suffer. Sometimes we want to put a competitor out of business. We want our enemies to lose at war. So we advocate for death, for murder, for pain and suffering to subjugate our opponent. And so on some level, in the human experience, is the need for victory over an opponent, which would involve their suffering. But for the most part, if I was given the power to create a life form, I would not want to include suffering and all of the behaviors that arise out of pain, because pain causes pain. When someone is in pain, they are more likely to cause someone else pain, to hurt them, to reject them, to be mean to them, to defeat them, to humiliate them or embarrass them. One of the great plagues of suffering in the modern day, and maybe since eternity, is loneliness. I don't think anybody suffers loneliness because they've earned it, because they caused loneliness. It's pretty difficult to cause loneliness for other people. You can help alleviate loneliness by your presence. So if loneliness is an indirect or an involuntary experience that is received without provocation, then what's the point of being a social being in this life form? So many people are depressed because of loneliness. We oftentimes talk of depression, but we don't speak of that which precipitates it. That which precedes depression is loneliness, because loneliness implies a shortage of sources of love, right? The more sources of love in our life, the more likely that we are at peace and we feel loved. The less sources of love in our life, the more likely we are lonely and feel despondent about that, i.e. depressed.